Shalom Alaikum. Again, Yahshar'al. Welcome to part 5 of this series of messages regarding our soon-to-be wilderness experience. We've titled this series, Repent Now, Yahshar'al. We're going into the wilderness. Hallelujah. If you're just joining us in this series, please do not start here. You're going to be lost, or at least confused. Please go back to the introduction. That's a short 3-minute video. Then proceed to parts 1, 2, 3, and 4 before viewing part 5. Keep it in sequential order so you can fully understand what's going on. And with that said, we'll move on with part 5. What we're doing in part 5 is proving that the 400-year prophecy of Genesis chapter 15 verses 12 through 14 were not fulfilled in Moses' time, during the children of Yahshar'al's time in the first Egypt, the Egypt on the African continent. And we're going to then show that this prophecy is being fulfilled right before your very eyes in our time. And we're going to prove this out meticulously, leaving no stone unturned. Okay, we know that the timestamp was activated when Jacob and his entire house, i.e. Yahshar'al, came into Egypt to dwell. So we'll start the significant timestamp list, and Yahshar'al's entry into Egypt will be the first item on the list. So we'll call that key moment number 1. Okay, key moment number 1 is Jacob, in other words, Yahshar'al, enters Egypt at the age of 130 years old. Again, key moment number 1 is Yahshar'al's entry into Egypt at the age of 130 years old. His entire household, wives, sons, daughters, sons' wives, grandchildren, etc., comes into Egypt with him. They are treated, listen to this, they are treated like royalty and given the best, most valuable, most fertile land in Egypt to live in, the district of Goshen. I told you to remember Goshen. Pharaoh himself, the king of Egypt, extends an employment opportunity to Jacob's sons, offering to hire them on to tend to his cattle. So in summary, they are treated like royalty, given the best land of the country, and offered a chance to make some good money. I don't know about you, but that does not sound like affliction to me. In other words, that doesn't sound like harsh and brutal treatment, oppression, browbeating, which means to intimidate others into doing something utilizing stern and abusive wording. And we can throw in discrimination and second-class treatment. Nope, none of that treatment applied to Yahshar'al and his house, the first 70 sojourners, when they moved into Egypt. In fact, it was just the opposite. So this is our first timestamp, and we will be referring back to this marker shortly. We're going to stay in Genesis chapter 47 for now, because we have another key moment coming up. If some of you came in late, you might be wondering what we're doing. In a nutshell, we're proving out the prophecy of Genesis chapter 15, verses 12 through 14. Proving what, you might ask? We're proving that the prophecy was not. Again, we're proving that that particular prophecy, the Genesis 15 prophecy, was not, absolutely not, fulfilled in Moses' day, as some would have you to believe. And that's just a half of it. The other half is we're going to prove that this same prophecy applies to our time, those of us here in the 21st century, the year 2025 AD, and that it pertains to the bloodline descendants of Yahshar'al, who the modern world refer to as black people, Negroes, African Americans, descendants of slaves, etc., etc. The ones who were scattered about the earth on slave ships and were forced to endure hard, brutal, inhumane bondage and servitude. Yes, this prophecy pertains to the people who endured that inhumane treatment during the times of chattel slavery. It pertains to that generation, and it pertains to the generation that endured the Dred Scott decision of 1857, where the United States Supreme Court held that the United States Constitution was not meant to include American citizenship for people of African descent, regardless of whether they were enslaved or free. And so the rights and privileges that the Constitution confers upon American citizens could not apply to them. The Supreme Court issued a 7-2 decision against Scott, a Yahshar'alite, in an opinion written by Chief Justice Roger Taney. Good old Roger Taney. The court ruled that people of African descent are not included and were not intended to be included under the word citizens in the Constitution, and can therefore claim none of the rights and privileges which that instrument provides for and secures to citizens of the United States of America. Taney supported his ruling with an extended survey of American state and local laws from the time of the Constitution's drafting in 1787 that purported to show that a, listen, quote, perpetual and impassable barrier was intended to be erected between the white race and the one which they had reduced to slavery, close quote. I'll take that to be the black race. Because the court ruled that Scott was not an American citizen, listen here, it goes on to say, he was also not a citizen of any state, and accordingly could never establish the diversity of citizenship that Article 3 of the United States Constitution requires for a United States federal court to be able to exercise jurisdiction over a case. Taney summed it up by this statement. I'll be paraphrasing his statement for clarity. A black man has no rights which a white man is bound to respect. Did you hear that? Here was Tanny's summary. A black man has no rights which a white man is bound to respect. Good old Tanny. He sure believed in speaking his heart, didn't he? And if you believe he was the only one who felt this way about Yahshar'al, or that his opinion was a minority opinion, I got some oceanfront property to sell you in Kansas. And this prophecy also pertains to the generation of Yahshar'alites that endured the Black Codes, which, among other things, restricted black people's rights to own property, conduct business, buy and lease land, and move freely through public spaces. And these codes, these black codes, also included the vagrancy laws, which meant states could criminalize men who were out of work or who were not working at a job whites recognized. Meaning, if they were self-employed or worked for another black person, they could be prosecuted. Just another way of bringing them back onto the plantation. And this was immediately following the so-called Emancipation Proclamation. We're talking 1865 to 1866. And this prophecy also pertains to the generation that endured the Jim Crow laws and the brutal practice of sharecropping, second-class citizenship status, separate but equal, which was actually separate and unequal, unfair housing and redlining practices, civil rights abuses, unfair sentencing policies, government-sponsored medical malpractice experiments. Anybody remember the Tuskegee study? Add to that list the poll tax, voting rights violations, and police brutality. Many of these unjust, oppressive, harsh, discriminatory conditions are still a part of our afflictions today. And if you read the prophecy accurately, it doesn't say that we're going to be afflicted for 400 years and then we're going to take off out of here. No, it says that we, Abraham's descendants, through the seed line of Jacob, of course, we've already established that Jacob is the seed or seed line of promise. It says that we will be afflicted for 400 years, and when the 400 years have come to pass, Yahuwah says he will judge that nation. So Yahuwah's judgment immediately follows the affliction, not our departure, or as some say, our second exodus. Unfortunately, some people are being and have been very disingenuous, claiming that if the prophecy was pertaining to Yahshar'al today, then we should have been out of here after the 400-year time span elapsed. But that's very disingenuous. First of all, if you're not even you're not even reading the prophecy accurately. The departure or second exodus is not the next step after the affliction. Judgment is. And if you look at H.R. 1242 or U.S. House of Representatives Bill 1242, the 400 years of African American History Commission Act, you will see that the United States government time-stamped our entry into this land. Involuntarily, I might add. That's what usually happens when you're kidnapped, right? The action is an involuntary one. But they formally or officially time-stamped our entry into this land in the year 1619, where the first, and I quote, 20 and odd Negroes or more, could have been more than 20, could have been much more. It used the wording or more. We just don't know if there were more, and if so, how many more. So it says 20 and odd Negroes from the English ship, here's the name, White Lion. They were sold in exchange for food at Old Point Comfort, Virginia, which was later renamed Fort Monroe in 1832. And it goes on to say, and some were transported to Jamestown, where they were sold again. In the next part, which will be part 6, we're going to talk about the order of the prophecy. In other words, affliction, judgment, and Exodus, are more rightly named Second Exodus. We're going to clarify that order. But first, we're going to get back to our ancient ancestors and see if we can solve an impossible math problem. We're going to try to see if we can get 400 years of harsh, oppressive, dehumanizing affliction out of the allotted 430 years. It's going to be very hard to accomplish, but we're going to give it our best try. The area we were speaking on earlier with good old Roger Taney and the Dred Scott ruling, we're going to pin that subject on the board as a sidebar. We'll come back to it and address it in detail. But for now, let's get back to the early days when our patriarch Jacob entered into the land of Egypt with his entire family, or as the Bible states it, with his whole house. We're going to walk through this meticulously and prove out our case that the 400-year prophecy in Genesis chapter 15, verses 12 through 14, could not have been fulfilled in Moses' day. So please join us for part 6 to see how it all unfolds. As we mentioned before, please don't forget to click the like icon for this video. It will help to spread this vital information around the world. To all nations, tribes, and tongues, Yahuwah is no respecter of persons. The Most High is about truth. He wants this truth to be spread all around the world. Not for me to be popular, but for all to have a chance to repent and to make it into his kingdom. And to this end, Yahushua said, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Free from sin, free from lies and deceit, free from eternal damnation. Yes, click the like icon and please consider subscribing to this channel. Yahuwah willing, we will have a lot more anointed, edifying, truth-based messages to share with you all following this wilderness series. You will get all the notifications and upcoming messages inspired by the Ruach HaKodesh, Yahuwah's set-apart spirit. So do consider subscribing to this channel. Also, please pray for this channel and for this ministry. I've ministered for many years in front of audiences and most recently in partnership with one of our beloved elders who have transitioned on to receive his crown. I had the privilege and the honor to minister with a group of elders, including our dear departed elder, for a number of years on the Blog Talk online radio platform. We learned a lot from each other and helped each other grow in the knowledge of YAH'UAH'S word and in staying committed to the covenant relationship we share with the Most High and with one another as brethren. So please pray both for the success of this channel and this ministry, that YAH'UAH'S will be accomplished through his servants. And last but not least, share this video, as well as other videos you have watched on this channel. Share them with your family, friends, associates, and loved ones, and even with strangers that you may meet. I am just one of many messengers who the Most High has called in these last and evil days. If you find these messages edifying, as well as the messages you hear on other truth-based channels, by all means share them with others. Text them to others. Email them to others. That way, you are a partaker in the work of the kingdom, and your efforts will not go unnoticed by the Most High YAH'UAH. I don't like to talk about finances at all. Corrupt preachers and ministries have coerced and fleeced YAH'UAH'S people to the degree that it feels filthy to speak on the subject of supporting a ministry financially. That's why the Most High has just led me to put the invitation on the last slide of the video and in the description box. If YAH'UAH'S Spirit moves upon you to give financially to support this ministry, then follow the leading of his Spirit. If he does not lead you to contribute in this manner, then do not give in this manner. As we mentioned earlier, there are far more ways to contribute to this and other ministries than that of finances alone. Only give in this manner if you are led by his Spirit to give in this manner. But whatever way you choose to give, do not neglect to pray for this ministry and like, share, and subscribe to the channel if it has been edifying for you. My prayer is to see you all in part 6. If you've been with us up to now, you may as well continue to hang with us and hear the conclusion of the matter. YAH'UAH willing, we'll see you all in part 6. Shalom, Yahshar'al. Hallelujah.